Tonight on Ben's Basics, we'll be recreating Anthony's Pizza. For those that don't know, Anthony's is a pizza chain unique to Army and Air Force bases. I grew up as an Air Force brat, and at least once a month our family would visit the local base and we would be treated with Anthony's Pizza. Anthony's was the first time I was exposed to New York style slices, and it came in a signature triangular shaped to-go box. Here is my recreation. Start by preheating your oven to 525 degrees for at least 90 minutes to 2 hours. You should also have a pizza stone for the best possible crust. The stone needs this time to absorb all of the radiant heat in the oven. Ensure the stone is on the second rack from the top. Now my stone looks a little weathered, but that's just the seasoning. It'll work just fine. These are our ingredients. I am using a lot of pre-made and jarred items, but I will cover from scratch in a later video. This is purely for convenience. First of all, let's start with the dough. I am using a pre-made frozen pizza dough. You can store frozen dough for quite some time without issue. I usually thaw and split the dough to make individual sliced pizzas. When ready, I take one container of the thawed dough out and leave it on the counter for at least 2 hours. Next is the cheese. I use a low moisture whole milk mozzarella. Polio is available in my stores and they make a great low moisture mozzarella. I prefer the smoked variety since the smoking process draws out even more moisture. I consider this a low moisture cheese. We will also need some grated Parmesan cheese. Since this will be used as a light dusting, there is no need to get the real good stuff. We will also need some olive oil. This is more of a light flavoring and to promote browning, so you don't need to get the extra virgin kind. The secret to Anthony's flavor, in my opinion, is a generic jar of Italian seasoning. All my attempts to recreate this herbal blend is pointless when this already exists and is most likely what the Army already uses. Now, the most controversial ingredient is pre-made pizza sauce. I like the flavor of Mia's Kitchen since it's not overly strong and complements the herbs. There's a lot of great pepperoni in the grocery store, but Olli is what I've been reaching for lately. It is usually sold as a snack, but it crisps well in the oven. And optionally, you can include some crushed red pepper flakes. I like a little bit of spice with my pizza, but not too much. I think it's a good complement to the flavors. I store mine in a glass jar. I think I got this glass jar at a farmer's market with some local honey in it. Always reuse your glass jars. Now, the hardware. Other than the as aforementioned pizza stone, you'll need cornmeal. I am including this as hardware since it acts more like a tool than a flavoring. I dust my pizza peel with cornmeal to ensure the pizza slides easily off the surface. Speaking of the peel, a simple wooden pizza peel is a lifesaver for making homemade pizzas. You can easily insert and retrieve pizza from the oven with this tool. For the mozzarella, you'll need a box grater or any grater with large size grates. You don't want to grate your mozzarella too finely. Finally, a pastry brush. This is to apply and spread the olive oil. While the oven is preheating, grate some of your mozzarella cheese. For an individual sized pizza, you don't need a lot. Just enough to cover a small sized dish. I find having the cheese somewhat cool but not completely cold makes grating that much easier. So if you refrigerate your mozzarella, have it out for at least 10 minutes prior to grating. You will thank yourself and your arms later. Now we are ready to stretch our dough. You'll need a clean work surface for this process. I'm using a large cutting board, but anything will work, including just a table surface or even a bench. Lightly dust it with flour and be sure to cover the entire surface so your dough does not stick when working it. I prefer to use a rolling pin, but this isn't necessary. I also lightly dust my pin to minimize dough stickage. The dough is almost room temperature and has doubled in size. It will feel a little sticky, but go ahead and plop it onto your floured surface. Get the dough completely covered in the flour before you start to flatten it. Here I am stretching the edges out before I apply my rolling pin. Some say the pin flattens too evenly and removes the chance for creating a nice lip. I disagree. I find the lack of ingredients on the edges weighing down the rise is what creates a large bubbles in the lip a good New York slice is known for. at least in my home kitchen. I am trying to stretch the dough to be as wide as my cutting board. Here, I made a mistake and made the dough far too wide and far too thin. While this won't affect the flavor, it will affect the look of the finished pizza. Give your peel a generous dusting of cornmeal. As I said earlier, this will help your pizza easily slide off the peel into the oven. Be sure to get all corners and edges, since any sticking will create folds and problems. Slide your dough onto the peel and let's start assembling. Give a good wiggle test to ensure the pizza can freely slide off the peel and you're good to go. First, we will start with a light coating of olive oil on the dough. Use your pastry brush and brush to the edges of the dough. But be sure to not brush over the edge or the dough might stick to the peel, and that will cause further problems. Next, the jarred sauce. You can use a regular spoon, but I find this small ladle works perfectly. 3 to 4 ladlefuls of sauce is ideal for a pizza of this size. Spread and leave at least half an inch of dough uncovered at the edges. You should have this layer somewhat thin, since Anthony's Pizza, and by extension most New York style pizzas I've had, aren't known for bursting with sauce. Now, the dusting of our pre-grated Parmesan cheese. This will act like a soft component to the entire dish, so please be very light on it. But also ensure you have good coverage. Follow this up with the secret ingredient, what I think makes the Anthony's flavor. I am talking about the jarred Italian seasoning. Sprinkle this in very lightly, but make sure you have full coverage as well. Now, for my own taste, I also like to include a very small pinch of the crushed red pepper. I like a little heat, but this isn't necessary, so if you don't want it, don't add it. Follow this up with the mozzarella. Spread it thinly. In the oven, it will spread out and even out over the surface. Avoid large clumps, and you want to see sauce peeking through this layer. You don't have more cheese than what you see here, in my opinion. And our final topping, the Olli pepperoni. While I love pepperoni, I want to be conservative with topping my pizza with it. For a pizza this size, about 6 to 7 slices is plenty. Now that the oven has been preheating for 90 minutes, switch to the broiler and raise it to its maximum temperature. Depending on your oven's last clean cycle, you may see some light smoking. Quickly slide your pizza off the peel onto the stone. As I alluded to earlier, I had to fold my edges to have the pizza fit. Because your oven was preheated and you had the broiler running, this will only take a few minutes. Check your pizza constantly. When ready, go ahead and use your peel and a pair of tongs to retrieve your pizza. And there we have it, my recreation of Anthony's Pizza next to the real thing. Since I am not military, I cannot visit the local base and get this whenever I wish, so I was going off memory. Someone had to procure this slice of pizza for me for this episode. Comparing the two for the first time, my crust is much thinner. Maybe 15 years ago, Anthony's was thinner as well. Maybe my own memories were affected by eating New York style slices since then. Anthony's also had a heavier dusting of Italian seasonings on top. Tasting Anthony's again after so many years, the flavor is familiar, but the crust seems doughier than I remember. I really do think the crust is thicker, but I could be wrong. My recreation tastes similar. I think the sauce and seasoning is almost perfect. The cheese has a good lippering to it, and I prefer the thinner crust. Tell me what you think. Has anyone else ever longed for Anthony's Pizza? Leave a comment below. Subscribe, and stay tuned.